Hey everyone, welcome to the Game Informer Show, a weekly podcast covering the video game industry. Join us each and every week for a discussion about the latest gaming news, reviews, and exclusive reveals alongside Game Informer staff and special guests from around the industry. I am one of your hosts, Marcus Stewart. I'm joined by Kyle, King of the Hilliard.
King of the Hill. Oh,
the return.
Right.
Oh, I've said this before.
You have, and I think it gets me every time. But thank you. I'll be King of the Hilliard, sure.
There you go. And our other guest, Mr. Charles, the King of Hearts.
Okay, yeah.
I had to add because you don't have an S at the end of your name, so
That's true. That's true. I'm King of the One Heart. My whenever it's like Halloween and on Twitter everyone changes their name, I make mine Charles the Telltale Heart.
That's nice.
So.
I'll allow it.
I have never done that. The spooky Halloween social media handle. And I think a lot of that is I don't know what you would do with my name, and also I've learned as I've gotten older that I'm bad creating names for things. Like when I have to make a custom name in a video game, it becomes progressively or it has gotten progressively more daunting of I don't know what to call this guy.
You don't just do Marcus, or you don't?
I mean, I do usually, but it's boring, right? I should come up with a cool name for this warrior guy that I got in Baldur's Gate. I don't know. Do you guys, maybe because I grew up not having nicknames, so I'm not used to being called anything but my name.
Yeah. I mean, I usually just go with my name. Here's what I do. I'm Kyle because I want to do the role play thing of I'm in the game, even if it doesn't really look like me. And then if I play as a female character, which I usually do, given the choice, I go by Kylie. So I'm super creative is basically what I'm trying to say.
What's your Halloween handle? Do you do that?
Oh, I've never done that. I don't feel like
Kyle Thrilliard.
Then I have to change it back at some point. When do you change it back? Like
you get a
November
full
1st?
month. I mean,
I don't know.
Halloween comes earlier and earlier each year. It's much like Christmas, where September is basically Halloween month now.
Right.
So you pretty much get 2 months to.
I guess
hold on to it.
My girlfriend had a roommate a few years ago where I was at her place on August 31st and then came back September 1st. And it was covered in Halloween decorations. Literally the midnight, it was bust out the big fake spider, the fake cobwebs. And it was really intense. So
we don't do really Halloween decorations in our house just primarily because we just dread the act of putting them away. We'll just let's just get rid of that whole process. But I do kind of want one of those big 8-foot Home Depot skeletons that are popular. You know, those things are cool. Put one of those in the front yard.
So do you not do Christmas either for the same reason, or?
No, we Christmas is the one that we do. We'll do a Christmas tree, but truly, I mean, it's a factor of laziness. Honestly, it's just if we put a pumpkin up, we gotta deal with it in a month. It's the same reason. It's the same reason I don't change my name on Twitter. It's this is just something I gotta deal with later.
You know what's cool, Kyle? You have red hair. I don't know if you're aware of this, by the way. But it fits the season, the fall season, that color.
Oh, thank you.
And I think so. That's a decoration in itself that you don't have to put away because it's just your body.
So you get it, man.
I could have sworn it was green a few months ago.
I don't think so.
I was gonna say, is there a reference? Was your hair?
It was and then in the winter it's gonna fall off. It was kind of leaves.
All right,
your winter coat. Gotcha.
It went. Hey, we can go. Someone else can say a joke.
We'll spruce it up in post. We'll add some canned laughter or something. Matt Storm can add some laughter.
Oh yeah. Dude, what if we had a laugh track for the whole podcast?
Ooh, I would love to do an episode that was sitcom themed.
It would be fun to make the podcast unlistenable. That would be that'd be something not a lot of other podcasts are doing, actually.
Yeah.
Well, what if we didn't do a laugh track for the video version? We do sort of modern sitcoms like The Office, and we just have awkward camera angles and zoom ins.
That'd be okay.
We do confessionals,
like a community style thing.
I think I do. Do I have some of those tools? I don't know. I'm not gonna bore everyone with me checking to see if I do, but I think I do.
What do you call that? It's fake documentary, basically, right?
Mockumentary.
I guess there's a word for that. It's either that. I don't think you do laugh tracks for those kind of shows because the camera angles are kind of no, that's funny enough. So those are the only two ways you can do a show basically. So, but it wouldn't work for the audio version. So I think the audio version has to have laugh tracks, but the video version is like community office style. It's going to make a very cohesive listening slash viewing experience for people that like to see both. It's going to be great.
And twice as much work for Matt.
Yes.
That's
Sorry,
right.
Matt. I think it might be like 3 times as much work. But you know what is a lot of work, but we love to do it, guys? It's playing video games, which we've all been doing. We have a lot of games to talk about this week. Big lineup. It's following another big show last week. I think this is going to be maybe the status quo for the rest of the year, just given how packed the release schedule is. It's just all of us being like, yeah, I'm playing like 5 games at the same time, and a lot of them are new. And God help us, please, will we finish all these games?
And hopefully they're good.
And that too, which thankfully this year a lot of them have been, more often than not. So, the big one for me, sort of to kick off the discussion, is Alan Wake 2. I got to play quite a bit of it, and the same preview trip where I got to play Spider-Man 2 and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. While I was in LA, there was a day where they had a big Alan Wake 2 event. This week was insane, by the way. Like, I couldn't talk about Alan Wake last week when I talked about the other 2 games, but now that I'm allowed to, I'm just going to point out that was that basically just like a surprise E3? Because it was like between those 3 events and then the Nintendo Direct and then the State of Play happening the same day that was announced kind of last minute. It was like, what is happening right now?
I know, yeah. Thank you, Marcus, for doing that, because I reached out to you and I was like, the good news is there's a bunch of good games to play for preview, and you're excited about all of them, I assume. The bad news is they're all day. It's like literally day, right, in California. It's like you spent 1 day playing Spider-Man, 1 day playing Final Fantasy, then 1 day playing Alan Wake, right? It was all like back to back to back.
All back to back. Yeah, I mean, it was great. I mean, like, so I'm excited for all those games, so I mean, I'm not going to complain about, but like, yeah, I want to get first hands on for those 3 games. I want to play.
Yeah.
The fun thing about getting to hang out with peeps, had dinner with Ben Hansen. Shout out to him. That was fun.
Boo. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay. I was saying, do I do the thing where I just name drop people and I see how you react? Like, and I got to hang out with.
Oh no, I was
Janet
booing
Garcia.
dinner. I love dinner. Dinner's great. No, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I was booing dinner. Dinner's bad.
Oh, booing.
Ben's great. Yeah.
Like dinner as a concept is bad.
Dinner terrible. Get rid of it. No
like
more.
lunch.
Boo.
After lunch. No, thank you.
I love that as a stance. Anti-dinner.
Why are we eating at night? Who's decided that rule?
No,
My
sorry,
stomach,
but I didn't mean
probably.
to. Please continue. You hung out with Janet, who's great, and Ben, who's fine.
Yeah.
He's listening, so
Yeah.
Shout out to Ben.
The guy you podcast with every week.
Exactly. I literally just got off the call with him. We did some movie trivia. So
yeah, and some other folks, Lucy James, Tamura Zane, hung out with them.
Hey, my other more former coworkers of mine.
Yeah, a few other peeps there. Great to see everybody as always. But yeah, Alan Wake 2. So I got to play 2 pretty lengthy demos. One as Alan, and then one as Saga, the new character, the FBI agent. They had a cool booth that was unlike any I'd ever been, and specifically because the game has like a cult that you're trying to like get to the bottom of. They're like, I think they're called the cult of the I keep forgetting their name, and I keep wanting to call them the cult of the Supreme Being, which, if you're a history fan, that is a French Revolution like thing that Robespierre was the head of, and it is not this. But they're basically these guys that wear deer mask, and at the event, they had like actors dressed up like the cult members that would walk around all of the booths and just sort of like stare at you every now and then. Like they were supposed to be like menacing. So we're all sitting in front of our TVs playing the game. And then periodically a very tall man in like a big green rain jacket with a deer mask would just kind of hover over me and just stare at me. And it was like, I would like look up like, and then I was like,
asking for tips. How do I solve this puzzle?
Yeah, he just points at the screen, is just silently, just like, no, go over there. That's what you want to do.
Did it enhance your experience?
That's the question.
It did. It was a cool, like they had a like graffiti around, like they basically made it look like I don't know which level in the game, but like an area in the game, I guess. So I guess they're trying to immerse you in there, and then they had those creepy guys. I the only thing I was really thinking was like, I think I would do that job. Like, of like if you're gonna be like, hey, you need to be like a performer for a game, and if you want to be like, wear a mask and just intimidate journalists as they're playing a video game, that sounds like a pretty sweet gig.
Be all right.
You just stand there and don't talk and get paid. I'll take it. But yeah, so between the two demos, yeah, like at roughly probably like 2 hours total. I'll start with Saga, and we should have some NGTs of my play sessions up that you and I did, Kyle,
Yeah.
which is actually my footage that I captured while playing. And yeah, Saga is very up. So like her story, you know, she's a new character, FBI agent. She's investigating Bright Falls in the Pacific Northwest, trying to catch a killer, and then also trying to figure out what the heck happened to Alan Wake. And you know, eventually discovers that he's trapped in the dark place, and sort of is basically his lifeline in the real world. It's at least that's what it looks like in the trailers, like trying to help him get out of there from her side. The section I played was in this small little village called Water. It's like a fishing village, and you're just sort of going around talking to people. And like her side of the coin, at least from this slice and just other trailers, seems to be leaning more into the investigative side of things, which would make sense given she's like basically a cop. You're talking to citizens. You're like whatever. You're trying to find clues, and then if they say something noteworthy, it'll go on your little case board, which is in your mind map, which is basically the main menu for both Alan and Saga, where if you, at least on the PS5, hit the touchpad, you'll open this, you'll basically be transported to a room that is essentially your not inventory, but basically your menu for like, hey, here's all the clues you've collected, here's all the notes, here's all the profiles for every person that you've met, and it updates over time. And you can just sort of manually walk around, like at least in Saga's mind map, it looks like a sort of like a cabin where it's like, oh, you go to your desk, here's all your profiles. You go to the wall, here's like a kind of like a what's the Charlie Day meme where he's got like the flow chart on the wall, like that thing of like, okay, here's everything I found so far, linking it together. Like, what does it all mean? And every time you get a new clue, you're like manually putting them on the wall in the correct sort of like category of like, okay, this pertains to this person, or this clue pertains to this specific event that I'm trying to figure out. It's a cool thing that's kind of confusing at first, just because it just seems like you fast traveled suddenly when you hit the button, because you're like instantly in a room. You're like, whoa, I'm in a new area. And then you kind of have to get used to like, oh, wait, no, this is my menu, basically. Which I'm grateful that there's an option to toggle to a more straightforward, like kind of text-based version of it while you're there, so you can just like tab between all the things instead of manually walking to like the desk where the weapon upgrades are or whatever it may be.
Yeah, I imagine late in the game you will kind of just want to look at it as a menu at a certain point, right? If you're like referencing it a lot, but it's a cool concept for sure.
Yeah, I mean, even in that demo, I started doing it as there were like points where I got like multiple key clues in a row, and I was like, oh, I gotta go put all these up on the wall. So I'm just gonna do it like you still have to do that part, like putting it there, but in terms of navigating to that section, it's just quicker to do it with the tabs. But the vibe is definitely more reminiscent of the first Alan Wake, just because you know you're in Bright Falls or around it, so it's like, okay, it's that weird sort of Twin Peaksy Pacific Northwest area. All these people are kind of weird in ways that you can't even always articulate. You're like, they just seem off for some reason. Even if they're not like bad necessarily, there's like a weird thing going on where everyone in the town not only knows her, but is acting like she's lived there before and that she's coming back from like a long absence, which is one of the things that kind of throws Saga off. Where they're like, hey, where you been? And like, you got a trailer because you're trying to find like, you know, you're trying to get leads on this killer, and at least in this slice, they're like, oh, you're going to find something about that in the trailer park, in the trailer that you own, your house. Don't you remember?
Oh, weird. Do they call her by her name? Do you remember? Or
yeah.
Oh, odd. Weird. Very cool.
Or she'll introduce herself.
Interesting.
Yeah, or she'll introduce herself, and they're like, oh, yeah, you know. They're not like, oh, nice to meet you. And she has the same reaction where she's like, okay, but she's also smart enough to sort of play along with it. Like, yes, my house. Could you tell me how to get to my house, just by the way? Just you know, I might have forgotten. It's been a while. But like, it's fun to just, because of how weird everything is, to go talk to people. And like, I'm a sucker for like a good sort of detective story, or like detective mechanics of trying to figure out like, okay, I talked to this person. He hinted me towards like a sauna near the lighthouse, so I should go there and find something. And like if I talk to one other guy, he seems to know something about the cult that I didn't know. And there seems to be at least some optional information that you can find depending on who you talk to and when. Whereas like I don't, even if I have what I need to do the main quest, you can get some supplementary information that can open up additional dialogue options with different characters of like, oh, I learned something about the cult. I'm gonna go talk to a person I already talked to see if they have something to say about that information, you know? And it might not add anything to your chart, but it's still more like, oh, okay, I didn't, maybe you have a little nugget that I wasn't aware of before.
Yeah, the first game was one of those games where it's like you could go talk to a lot of people, but it was like rarely you needed to, right?
Yeah.
But it was one of those games where I was like, well, yeah, I want to talk to everyone. Everyone's like has some strange thing about them, you know, and it sounds like that's moving forward where it's like you are incentivized to talk to everyone, not because they have mechanical gameplay value to you, but you're like, I just want to know your deal. You know?
Yeah, and the same goes with like reading stuff. Like there's a bunch of signs and like bulletin boards where, you know, again, some of it's just flavor. Some of it does have some value of like it might update something on your flow chart. Like, okay, this fleshes out this town a little bit more and maybe I can use this for later. But like that demo eventually took me to like this amusement park that was themed after coffee, and that's kind of where the bulk of the action took place, where I was getting attacked by all the sort of shadowy figures, the Taken, I think they were called. But the combat feels good. It's very Resident Evil 4. I guess that's like the basic, like if I could distill it down. Exactly. It feels good. It's the over-the-shoulder thing.
Yeah.
And I say Resident Evil 4, one, because, you know, we get that remake this year, so it's kind of on my mind. And then second, because, like, Remedy has been very clear about saying Alan Wake 2, they're going for pure survival horror this time. You know, that comes down to, like, managing ammo and resources, where it's sometimes better to maybe not get into a fight if you can help it. You know, like, there's at least between the two slices, there were at least multiple paths where it's like, okay, I think I could sneak past or avoid this guy if I wanted to, if I maybe went right. And that might be better because I've only got like 2 flashlight batteries and I don't know when I'm going to find another one, or it's been a while since I've seen the last, the little safe house, which I'm a survival horror fan. So like that immediately sings to me as I'm playing it. But even just the combat encounters, like having the enemies like throw hatchets at you and stuff, and you kind of do like the sort of like half-ass side dodge to avoid it, is very Resident Evil 4. And I just kept thinking of that as that was happening to me. It's like, yeah, I'm just kind of like stepping to the left once, and I just avoided getting my head chopped off by this sickle.
Yeah, why roll when you can just gingerly step? You know, that's just energy conservation.
It's so realistic too. Like if someone's throwing something at me, the instinct I would have to do a full somersault and then land back on my feet afterwards, versus like, ugh.
Yeah, exactly.
I
mean, have you ever? And I have this thought all the time when I think about like video game or even like movie like actions that you see all the time that you never do in real life, and like the dodge roll is definitely one of them. It's like how often, if ever, do you roll out of the way of something? But we do it all the time for anything in video games. Mm-hmm. So it's like, have you ever dodge rolled legit ever?
I don't think so.
And neither does Saga. I mean, she has a dodge button, and Alan does too, where she kind of does she kind of ducks a little bit.
I always like that because it just feels more natural. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, they're not going to do anything fancy.
And you still get the satisfying sort of joy of like, oh, I got out of the way in time. And I think I feel like in Alan Wake 1 it would even slow down if you did it well. I don't know if it does that in 2, but
I don't think so, at least, or maybe if it did, I didn't time it right.
Yeah, maybe later in the game or something like that.
Upgrade you got to get or something. But yeah, like the combat feels good. You're still doing the dance of like shining them with your flashlight, you know, exposing or getting rid of the darkness and then just blowing their heads off. There was like some speedier enemies that gave me a harder time just because they can catch up to you pretty fast. I'd say the enemies, they definitely have that sort of like unpredictability, even the standard ones, just because, you know, they start by like lumbering kind of slow, and then all of a sudden they like warp in front of you super quickly. And then because you have a very slow reload animation, that can get pretty hairy when you're taking on even maybe like 2 at the same time. And you're like, oh, my revolver, I got to reload all my bullets. and you're taking your time, and then you think that you have enough time, but then they suddenly like jump in front of you or warp in front of you. See, I kept having to back off a lot and just to give myself some breathing room to like let me just get like 2 bullets in here just really fast. And I like that tension that created. And again, as someone that generally tries to avoid conflict, if you give me the option to, it's sort of like reinforced, like, maybe this wouldn't be so hard if I just didn't get into a fight with these guys at all. What if I just maybe went the other way or was better at stealth? The puzzle solving I came across, like the environmental stuff, was largely around unlocking like padlocks for these different like coolers that were like caches that the cult was leaving around. That are like, hey, you'll find these notes, and they'll be like, hey, I left the crossbow here, but the code, you got to figure that out. Here's a vague series of clues, or like, here's some convoluted way I decided to explain how to open this thing. Like there was one where I had to open a lock by looking at the staff board for the theme park and seeing all of their duties, and then each of them had like coffee beans next, or like a number of coffee beans in their photos, I think indicating like maybe like employee of the month status, almost like gold stars of like, you got 4 beans, this guy's a good employee. And then
hold
like
on,
the
I'm writing
note,
this down to implement here. So beans, okay.
and the problem was like, oh, okay, this the combination's based on the list of occupations. So like janitor, I think one of them was like lookout, and then the other one was something like, I'm trying to remember, like gatherer or something like that. And then trying to figure out what that, like how that corresponded with the list of duties on the staff. Like, okay, gatherer, would that be like the lost and found person that they gather things technically? And then seeing like, okay, how many beans do they have? That's 3, so I guess that's the number 3 for the padlock. Like stuff like that, where you're like, okay, that's actually pretty clever. I like that. I think I like that. Like at least the puzzles I found, they were all challenging without holding your hand, but not like obtuse, which is all I can ask for, really, right?
Yeah. Like you want the satisfaction of coming to a solution without it being too easy or too hard, right? It's tough to find that middle ground, and sounds like it is, hopefully, so far.
Yeah, and the Alan stuff was a little bit more like surreal, like that. Like his big thing, because he's set in a dark place, the super weird dark realm of horror and magic, I guess. He's exploring his hotel. I love this bit just because it reminded me so much of The Shining. It's like you're in this abandoned hotel that is like haunted with all these just like entities trying to kill you. You got all these locked hotel room doors, and a lot of them you don't even have to go into like for critical path, but there's a lot of like keys you can get, and you'll even hear stuff on the other side of some of them that made me wonder like, what is, if I go in there, is something bad gonna happen? There was one that I never found the key for, but I really wanted to, where it was like you just heard a woman kind of like either moaning or like humming, but it just sounded very unsettling, and I really wanted to know what was going on in there. And like the first time Alan goes up to it, I think he even had like a line of dialogue. He's like, "Is it worth going in there? Like, if something bad, should I even try? Like, something bad gonna happen to me if I go in there?" And I was like, "Well, now we got to see what's in there."
Yeah, all right. Geez.
But like his big thing is pretty much just changing and manipulating the environment. He has that the dark place lamp, which is that like Dumbledore light stealing tool, basically, where he's sucking light sources out of bulbs and placing them in other places, and then depending on whether an area is light or dark, it changes the environment. So it's like, hey, there's a wall in my way here. Well, not if I take the light away, because the dark version of it has no wall, and I can go forward. Like the fact that like it looks instantaneous, where it just like pops, or things pop in and out of existence, looks super cool to me. And then sort of the more complicated version of that is the plot elements, where you'll explore around, you'll find these echoes, which are basically these in-game like live action cutscenes, very much like Control had, where you just see like a live action scene sort of like overlaid within the game. And then sometimes he'll get like a inspiration of like, oh, a murder. Okay, that's a good plot device for a story. What if I applied that murder scenario to this room, and then it transforms that room into the aftermath of the murder, and then that might basically give you a path forward. Like there was it's cool, and it's weird to explain. Like it's almost like you have to see it to really get what I'm talking about. But yeah, it's basically like you pick a thing in your mind map, and then you just transform the environment to that thing, or like it's the same environment, but it's like in that theme of like I had a haunted plot element where like if I applied it in certain scenes, that area became a ghost story. And then, even there's only one right answer for like critical path, but you can apply multiple plot elements to the same scene and you'll get like every version of it. And then sometimes you might find something good or you might find something bad, like an enemy that maybe wasn't there before or something like that.
Okay.
But like Remedy is encouraging players like, hey, experiment, just try different things and see what happens. And also just like, it's almost like kind of like connecting like prefabbed rooms together. Because there was one sequence towards the end where I had to turn the entire hotel into the murder mystery. So I had to go to different rooms and be like, okay, now you're the murder. Okay, this room, you're the murder mystery. And then like the last room, I think I had it set to the haunted one. So you could see almost the line of like, okay, this is the haunted story, and then this is the murder. Because the murder one, all the walls were like covered in blood and there's bodies all over the place. And then the haunted room had like this sort of like summoning circle looking like chalk drawing in the middle of the floor. Like a seance was going to take place there or something like that. And you can kind of even visually see the distinction between the two. And I think that's a cool touch. It lends itself to some cool like environmental puzzle solving that I don't really think I've seen in a game before. But I really liked what they did with it in that demo. Just like making you think like, how can I get past this? Like what plot element would make sense in the like the context of like what's happening in the hotel or what I need to get to. But overall, I had fun with it. Like I'm somebody that liked the first Alan Wake, but I'm not as in love with it as some people are. Like I enjoyed it, and that's kind of, and I walked away and didn't really think about it too much. But
yeah, it's probably my favorite Remedy game, I think. Although I do like, I like the original Max Payne a lot. But yeah, Alan Wake was also the first game I ever got early for like journalistic purposes. I was like freelance writing at Games Radar, and they were able to get me a copy for a feature I was working on. So that game will always be like special to me for that reason. But I just love the combat. I love we talk about it in the new gameplay today. Just sort of the system of like using the flashlight then the gun. I think just creates such like a thrilling sort of slow motion moment where like enemies like walk at you and you're just like counting down the seconds until you can shoot them, and you want to make sure they're not too close to you. Like I love that sort of mechanic. So I'm really eager to sort of jump into the sequel for sure.
Yeah, I think my only concern is just like if the story gets too meta and confusing.
Oh sure,
like, there were even moments in the like Alan side of things where like you're watching a cutscene with Alex Casey, who's like the character in his like crime novels, and he said something about like, oh, like the hotel was like having basically like a LARP where they're like, oh yeah, we have a thing called interactive theater where we have a murder mystery and everyone in the hotel plays along and it goes, everyone's in on it, but then someone got actually murdered during that. And
That's how it always happens.
And even he said like, oh man, this story seems really meta or something like that. Like he dropped that word in there, but then that became meta because it's like, that's Alan's fictional character talking about like in his world a play where there was an actual murder, and then you're taking the plot element from all of that to apply to like reality, quote unquote, whatever, if the dark place is reality, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And then moving forward, like there are layers there where I'm like, okay, I'm afraid they could lose the thread here a bit. That's my only words. Like, is it going to get too up its own butt, which is like Inception style layers upon layers upon layers of like realities and storytelling? But as a game and like moment to moment and just like the tension and also the presentation is fantastic. I'm excited to play Alan Wake 2. Like I definitely walked out more pumped for that game, which is always a good sign. So
yeah, nice.
Yeah. Charles, you gonna play Alan Wake 2? Are you an Alan Wake fan or?
Are you muted? I think
you're muted, Charles.
He's freaking out for the audio
Charles
listeners.
Is pantomiming right
He's going
now.
crazy. Oh my gosh, what's happening? We can't hear him.
Can we guess? He's making faces, like very expressive faces.
I'm guessing. Let's see. What do you think, Marcus? Has Charles played the original Alan Wake?
How old would Charles have been in 2010?
He's a little bitty baby. We know this about Charles. I don't know. Oh, he can hear us. He can hear us. I'm guessing he hasn't played Alan Wake. But,
he'd been roughly like 13, right?
But he loves Quantum Break. He's like the biggest Quantum Break stan.
I can't tell if that's an insult or not. Are you? I can't. I was like, I don't know. Is that
Quantum Break? Say? Quantum Break is a good game that I like. Oh, there he is.
I didn't do anything different.
Well, of course.
The moment you started like assigning Quantum Break fandom to him is when he's like, I gotta get back in here.
I want to be very clear. I like Quantum Break. Quantum Break is a good game, but in terms of Remedy's sort of gamography, I would put it on the bottom of a very good gamography. You know?
Yeah, I agree. I think Quantum Break's fine. Maybe it was a little disappointing, but like. It's the weakest of their stuff.
Yeah,
I'm a Control guy. I think Control is the best thing they've done.
And what about you, Charles? Now that we can hear you.
Well, just for editing purposes, real quick, that this is my mic disconnected from Audacity too. So,
okay.
There needs to be some resyncing done.
Do you want to? Should we do it now? Or are you ready to go? Do you want to sync real quick?
I mean, I got Craig recording.
Yeah, I've got my main backup. Are you recording, Charles, currently?
Yes, it stopped because I unplugged my mic and plugged it back in.
Okay.
But I think
let's just clap. Let's just clap real quick.
Clap. Okay.
All right, you ready? Three,
two. Oh, so you can do it.
I'll do it. 3, 2, 1, clap. Okay.
Cool.
And then and then the wizards will take care of it, or leave it all in. I don't know.
Yes, I think, Charles, we were, now that you're back,
yes.
Alan Wake 2, excited? And were you a fan of the first game? I don't know if I've ever heard you talk about Alan Wake in general.
So I haven't heard it. It's one of those games I heard the name of and had no idea what the actual game was. And I was going to say, Kyle, you're describing like the flashlight gameplay, and I was like, that just sounds like Luigi's Mansion to me. That's a little bit. The flashlight.
Yeah.
But no, I'm interested. I'm more interested the more I hear you talk about it. I played Control, but I had a hard time sticking with it. I got like, I don't remember how far in I got, but I got to the point where it started getting like really hard, and I wasn't interested in putting up with it anymore, and the story had kind of lost me. So I have not been won over by Remedy, but I'm open to it. I was going to ask, do you think... It seems like the answer is yes, but you think you should play the first game before playing Alan Wake 2?
I don't even know if Remedy has answered it. I feel like every developer now, when they do a sequel, they're like, yeah, you can just jump right in, whatever. And I don't know if Remedy has come out and said that. I mean, my knee jerk is no.
Yeah,
my knee jerk is yes, you should play the first game, or at least watch a YouTube video.
See, my answer is always like, play the new one that everyone is playing and excited about, and then if that hooks you, then you can go and like play 1 if you want. But I'm the person who skipped Mass Effect 1. Like, just play the new thing, you know?
That's why I was just going to counter that with the Mass Effect. I feel like that's the ultimate, like, you should really just start from 1 if you really want the full experience.
Not for Kyle. Just play 2. Just skip to 2.
I mean, I'll probably start it too. The worst thing is when you get into those holes of like, I can't play this game because I haven't played all the games that came before it, and then the games keep coming out, and I'm like, I keep meaning to play all of the like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is the second one. Is that right?
Yeah.
I saw someone asked, do I have to play Remake before Rebirth? And someone else was like, you should really play the original Final Fantasy VII, then play Remake, then play Rebirth. And I was like, even if that's probably the most comprehensive experience, that's just so much to invest in. You're putting like, 60 hours worth of game in order to play another game. It's just like a lot to invest. Really?
Yeah, in that case, yeah. I mean, I think Final Fantasy VII is like a 70, 80-hour game on its own, you know?
Yeah, I mean, even I have my limits with the whole, like, you need to go back. 'Cause I would never tell someone to play OG Final Fantasy VII if they haven't played it and want to play Remake. It's just like, Remake's it is a good jumping on point, as well as a good sort of sequel to 7.
You get more out of it if you play the original, sure, but man, just play the new thing.
Or just watch like
always just play the new thing, man. Don't worry about it.
It turns out Final Fantasy VII is a very popular game that a gazillion YouTubers have summarized very succinctly that you could go watch instead of playing a very dated RPG. But anyways, Kyle.
Yeah.
You have been playing the Separate Ways DLC for Resident Evil 4 Remake. You've been hanging out with Ada Wong. How's she doing?
She's good. I was trying to think of like she did encounter any sort of terrible. There is okay. Oh gosh, is it a spoiler? I won't outline the specifics of it, but there is a sequence in Resident Evil 4 Remake 2023 - Separate Ways DLC that you can fail. If that makes sense, and you get a really spectacular death animation that I didn't get because I succeeded in the sequence. It's not like a hard sequence or anything like that, but that might be a hint enough for you. I encourage you to fail a sequence to see the death animation.
It.
Yeah, just to see the animation. But
so Marcus asked how she's doing, and you were like, "Well, she could be doing horribly."
Depends on how you do in that
if you're
sequence.
interested.
But Separate Ways was funny because I think we all kind of assumed it was coming. If you know the sort of trajectory of the original Resident Evil, it's like, well, surely they'll do Separate Ways at some point. For some background, if you're unfamiliar, Resident Evil 4 released for GameCube in early 2005, and by the end of 2005, it actually got ported over to PlayStation 2, and that PlayStation 2 version of the game added the Separate Ways DLC, which is this whole long campaign where you play as Ada Wong, and then it was also included in like the Wii version and like other remakes and stuff like that. So we all kind of assumed it was coming. I think the surprise for me at least was like, oh, it's not only is it coming, it's coming like next week. Like they announced it and it was like really close. And so it really snuck up on me and didn't really give me any opportunity to like be excited about it or really do a lot of research on it. It was literally like, oh, that Separate Ways comes out tomorrow. Do we have a code for that? Okay, yeah, I'll check that out. I want to play that. And it was like, I jumped into the game and I was like, oh, right, Resident Evil 4 Remake is awesome. And, like, this is just more Resident Evil 4 Remake. And, like, playing as Ada is really cool. Like, she's a cool character, this, like, femme fatale, mysterious woman. And, like, she plays mostly the same as Leon. Like, even her weapons feel pretty much the same. She has a couple of other weapons she can find. Like, could Leon use the explosive arrows? I don't even remember.
Yeah.
He could, okay.
Or he's got the ones that you can set up kind of like mines, right?
Yeah. No.
You could get.
Okay, Ada has just a straight up shoots an explosive arrow that takes like a really long time to reload and stuff like that.
Okay.
But then she also has the grappling hook, which is like the big game changer. That's the main thing Leon did not have, and it doesn't really make moving around feel that much different. I guess there are some combat scenarios where you can sort of get out of danger really quickly by hopping up, to an area above you.
You can melee people from far away.
Well, that's what I was getting to. That's the big thing is like you can shoot people in their knees, which is like when I play Resident Evil 4, like Leon is like either a great sort of, I don't know, was he a soldier, I guess, or an agent? He's a great
like agent. Yeah.
Who's like terrible at headshots because he shoots people exclusively in the knees and the shins. Like that's all he does when I play. And the nice thing about Ada doing that as well is like you don't have to get close to people to do melee attacks. You can like shoot them from like 8 to 10 feet away and then use your grappling hook to like fly at them and kick them. And that just feels great. And it's just like it's way cooler than what Leon ever does, which is like you shoot people in the knees and then you sort of slowly amble up to them and then kick them and then shuffle backwards really quickly,
Not to break the illusion, but realistically, if you were gonna, like, if I shot you with a grappling hook and then zipped towards you to do a kick, right?
Yeah.
You would have to be pretty heavy for that to work, right? Because you would have to basically be heavy enough to be an anchor to where my body weight isn't pulling you down. Like, I'm coming to you, and the person that is hooked does not move an inch. They're just kind of like they're taking a knee. And I just thought does that actually make sense? Like, I'm sure Ada's not like the heaviest person in the world, but it's not like the people she's hooking are like massive dudes,
What is the parasite called?
Las Plagas?
Yeah, you know what they say about Las Plagas, right, Marcus?
Probably something in Spanish I don't understand.
It adds 10 pounds.
Okay. I mean, it is like it gets pretty when you see it when you blow them apart and you see their little wiggly bits.
That's like a whole other person inside.
Pretty
of you there.
dense. Yeah.
Yeah. It turns out the physics of Resident Evil 4 don't make any sense. I mean, Ada's flinging herself around like Spider-Man.
I'm just saying, if you did that in real life, it would be less impressive because you would hook it, and then the moment it retracts, you'd probably just both fall forward.
Which Ada would not put up with. I mean, she's running through that whole scenario in heels, but so she has impeccable balance. Like nothing can knock her over, truly. But yeah, it's so good. It's Resident Evil 4, and then it's also nice to get sort of a truncated version of the full adventure because it's basically you're going alongside the same time as Leon. So it's like it's almost like watching or not watching, but like playing through a shortened version of Resident Evil 4 with new mechanics. And then also the other cool thing, which again I won't detail too much because of spoilers, is that some of the things that did not make it into Resident Evil 4 that were in the original game that we were, disappointed weren't. It's like, oh, they didn't do this part. Oh, they cut this thing. Some of that stuff is in separate ways.
Oh.
Which is cool. And like I said, I won't go into much more detail than that. But I mean, overall, just an awesome excuse to revisit Resident Evil 4 Remake. It's about I think I beat it in like 6.5 hours. So it's not like, it's long. It's longer than I expected for DLC, but not so long that I was like getting frustrated with it. I was like, if a DLC is getting into like 15 or 20 hours, and it's kind of like, okay, what are we doing here? Like, this is just a sequel, But this feels like just the right amount of just a revisitation of Resident Evil 4 Remake to be like, oh yeah, this Capcom really like hit it out of the park with this thing. This is great.
I need to get back to it because we streamed it, you and I, which you can check out on our Game Informer Shows YouTube channel, the archive. But I played up to the point that you got to in the stream where we stopped, and I haven't had a chance to get back to it just because I was finishing up another game that I'm talk about in a bit. But like I said before, like Resident Evil 4, I think is one of the best games of the year. The remake, love that game. It's like that nice surprise. It's like, man, there's more of this great game.
Yeah,
that came out that we get to play now. And hearing that I was wondering that too. Like, I wonder how long this is. I was thinking like, yeah, maybe like 3-4 hours. And
yeah,
it's like
a little longer than that. Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Go ahead, Marcus. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I was just saying, like, just hearing that it's like close to double that is like exciting, and then also somewhat daunting. Of like, okay, this is something else I have to fit in, in between all the other stuff. But at least it's not like terribly long. So
yeah, I mean, but it is also one of those things where I was like, the moment I started it, I was like, this is all I want to play right now. You know what I mean? It didn't feel that long. Like I finished Phantom Liberty last night, which I quite enjoyed.
Nice,
but I paused it, so to speak, to play Resident Evil with the intention of like, oh, I'll stream it for an hour with Marcus, and then I'll go finish Phantom Liberty, and then I'll go finish Separate Ways. And it was very much like, no, you're not doing that. You're finishing Separate Ways. Like, you're locked into this. This is so great. So yeah, I high recommendation. We should have a review on the site probably by the time this podcast goes up. I do want to review it. It's not one I was planning to review, which is always like a compliment. It's like, I played it, I liked it so much, I'd like to write something about it on the site to make sure it's recommended to people.
Awesome. Check that out, guy. Resident Evil 4 fans. Charles, you gonna check this out? Did you play RE4 at all?
RE4 is my biggest. I have to get back to that. I think this year. That's that one like major game I haven't played that I'm like, I really need to play this game. Because I was kind of like, I don't know, it's gonna be like a scary game. I don't usually play horror games, but now and then it came out and it seemed important enough. I was like, probably do this. But I was doing something else at the time. I can't remember what game I was distracted by, but I intend to. And then if this is good, I'd also like to do that. But
do you remember how far you got? I'm curious for you. You dropped it?
Oh no, I didn't play it at all.
Oh, okay. I thought
like
you started it.
It's a game I haven't started. Yeah.
Oh, if you had started it, it would have been a different conversation. If you had at least
probably
started it, you would have been like, oh, I had to finish it.
Resident
Evil 4 would have seen that dog.
Yeah.
Like, I got to see what's going on with that.
I mean, even when I will just pick up the before the remake, I would pick up the original. Like, it would come to Switch or something, and it would be on sale. I'd grab it, or I'd pick it up on Steam Deck, and I almost would beat it every time I would start playing, just because it's like, it just grabs you, and it's so quick and smooth, and like the pace is so fun. Like, it really is like the sort of the apex of like, you start, you can't stop kind of game. It's really true.
My awkward Resident Evil 4 story, which I forgot until just now, is I had someone tell me I should play it, and I was like, oh yeah, totally. And this was like, I don't know, 5 years ago. And he was like, "No, it's like so good though. Like, here, let me. Can I pull up YouTube real quick?" And he pulled up like one of those like Resident Evil 4 the movie where it's just all the cutscenes back to back.
Mm.
And I just sat through it for a really, and it was like it's a
Like,
video game.
You
So
watched
it's
it
like
with him?
it's like hours and hours of cutscenes. Yeah, and it was a thing where I thought he was gonna just show me the first 5 minutes, and then 20 minutes had gone by, and then 45 minutes had gone by.
And they're like,
Luckily,
am I too rude to say I don't want to see any more of this?
Yeah.
Like, you know?
I think I was eventually like, yeah, so I think my parents are gonna have dinner now, so if you wanted to head out, like I think that was how it ended. So
Looks like the
I don't
sun's
remember
going
most of
down.
that.
Better get. You're still here, maybe.
Yeah. But I'm sure
Yeah.
it's better than watching just all the cutscenes on YouTube with somebody you don't really want to be in the same room.
It would also be nice to hear your perspective as someone who doesn't like have a lot of affection for the original. Like you never played it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like I would be curious to see what you think of it as the remake, because I've say with confidence that I don't think it's like the nostalgia that makes the remake so good, right? I think if that game came out today as Resident Evil 9 or whatever, I think we would all be enamored with it. But I could be totally wrong. Maybe you play it and you're like, yeah, it's fine. I don't know. It's a third-person shooter. I've played a dozen of these, you know.
I would suggest experiencing it the way you did the first game, where you watch all the cutscenes, and you have to have a person that is like your friend but better. So it's like a remake of that person, essentially.
Oh, I really like that. I really like
Yes.
that.
So maybe it's him, but he's like matured and grown up a bit.
I'll watch him with Blake, who's really passionate about it.
Is Blake the modern version of your friend?
He's much better. Was my point. I'd
Okay.
much rather watch these with Blake.
Yeah,
There you go.
He would be very excited to share Resident Evil 4 with you.
Charles, one thing I'm excited for you to share with us is your thoughts on, is it Super Bomberman R2?
Super Bomberman R2. Yes. The latest Bomberman game. It's one of those things where they kept adding, it's like a new Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe deal where it's like you gotta there's too many variables in this name. Yes,
Charles,
I am currently
answer this question, yes or no. Is Super Bomberman R2 the bomb?
I would say if it was a box office movie, then it would have bombed.
Oh.
Okay. Wow.
In other words, it's not very
Harsh.
good.
Oh no.
It's the 65 of video games starring Adam Driver. It didn't do well.
Oh, that's 65 where he goes to the dinosaurs or whatever.
Yeah, the
Right,
sci-fi
yeah.
movie. Apparently, that was a huge bomb this year. Right? That was the first box office bomb that came to mind.
It bombed so hard I didn't even know what it was, which is also what I would say about Super Bomberman R2 before I was assigned to review it.
Oh no.
Yeah, no. So it's an interesting game. The things I think that work about Bomberman work here in general. So if you got a bunch of people on a couch and you boot up Super Bomberman R2 and it's like, let's just play together, I think you're gonna have fun because it's Bomberman and it's very simple, but it works, and I think it still works now. There's a bunch of other stuff they've added in an attempt to kind of like evolve it that mostly don't work. The one thing that's really cool, I think we mentioned it. I mentioned the game in the morning meeting the other day, Marcus, and you said it'd be cool if there was like a Tetris 99, but for Bomberman. There is actually a game mode called Battle 64, and it's like there's 64 players, and you're in a bunch of different like classic battle stages, and then as the timer goes, you're all funneled into like, you go from like 16 rooms or however many, and then it's like 8 rooms, and it's 4 rooms, and then everyone's up in one room. That mode is fun. That's cool and is good to play.
You play it like online with 63 other players? Okay.
Yeah.
That does sound cool. That does sound like a cool Bomberman idea.
I think, and I don't actually have evidence to support this. It's just the way they're playing. I feel like a lot of it is bots.
Which Fortnite thing?
Could be, yeah.
Which is fine, honestly. Like I wasn't playing it and I'm like, this sucks because it's bots. But that was one thing I was having issues with matchmaking, where it's also one of those things where I can't think of another example off the top of my head, but the modes are only at certain times. So for like an hour, it'll be one mode on one map, and then the next hour it'll switch to a different mode on a different map. So if you go in and you're like, I want to play this mode, it just depends on if that's the one mode available right now. And I imagine it's done because if there aren't a lot of people playing and you have like 7 modes, instead of 7 people being spread out between all those modes, you're like, okay, everyone's going to play this, everyone's going to play that. But there was one I was doing, and it was just standard battle. And I kept getting matched up again. I got matched up against the same guy 3 times in a row. It's normally a room of 4, but it was just the 2 of us. So it was a 1v1 Bomberman. And this guy was so
As
good.
it's meant to be played. Yeah.
And I just kept getting smoked. And I wished that I could have picked a different mode, or that there were more people, so it was at least like me and another guy against this guy. But
You think he was like licking his lips every time he saw your screen name? Like, oh, this
he was like,
this pushover.
it's also ranked, so I'm like level bronze 5 because I just started, and this guy was already up to silver 3, and so he was like probably so happy to get up towards platinum or whatever the top rank.
So you're helping him out. You're doing him a favor.
Yeah, exactly. I was dying on purpose. But yeah, so the multiplayer, and that's like fine, the online stuff. The main new mode is this mode called Castle Mode, where you can make these custom levels and you put like a bunch of traps in them. So there's like conveyor belts and like cannons that shoot bombs, like slippery floors and stuff. And there are treasure chests, and you need to get keys to unlock the treasure chests. And there's like a defending team and an attacking team. And the attacking team has to get the keys, go up to the treasure chest, and you have to stop them from getting all of them. And this is like, so I should mention, Battle 64 mode came in Super Bomberman R Online, which was an online Bomberman game that launched with on the Stadia, but was discontinued last December. Weird. So it's not around anymore. So this might be the only way to play Battle 64 mode. I don't actually know, but this is definitely like the new way to do it. Castle mode is the one like new mode in this.
Is that, and that one's like single player castle mode? Is that
it's multiplayer.
It is, okay.
So but it's also in the story mode. But you're basically making these maps, and then you have a team of like, I think up to 5 people can be attacking, and then 3 people can be defending, and they're trying to get through your traps and stuff. And it's fine. And I'm not crazy about it, but compared to story mode, which I really don't like, and I'll get into in a second, I feel like it doesn't work, but it doesn't work in a way where it understands what Bomberman is and can be. And it's just kind of like, it's not super fun the fun part about Bomberman is trying to blow up your friends and trying to outmaneuver them and out-strategize them. And in Castle mode, it is like you have to outmaneuver the stage hazards and then also these other people. And if you're attacking, it can just be like really overwhelming. And also people are really good at coming up with really cheap stage designs. So if you're playing on someone else's stage, it's like not crazy to assume that it's going to be really hard if they're like an experienced person. Story mode is exhausting. It is
First, define story exactly. Like, are we talking cutscenes?
We're talking cutscenes.
Bomberman speak?
So Bomberman is known as white. The traditional Bomberman you know is white because there's a bunch of Bombermans.
Right. He's got the white jumpsuit is what you're saying.
Yeah. Well, and they're all different colors, and they call them by their colors.
Okay.
So
that just seems like dangerous.
He'll be like, well, oftentimes he'll be like, Black, you're being so lazy. You need to help out with the thing. And it's just his name, and it's fine. But,
yeah.
And the plot is
not ill-intended. It just kind of hard not to see it.
Out of context, it's very funny.
We lost Marcus.
Actually, never mind. I'm not gonna make that.
The comedic potential and how awful that could be is just hitting me.
It really is.
Oh, jeez.
I really honestly I wish I could do a whole like spoiler cast on the plot of this game because the ending is so weirdly dark. It takes such an odd turn at the end for like the villain's motivations and like what's been going on the whole time.
Well, what's like the general what are the stakes?
Yeah,
Like,
how
what's the
quickly
general
could you do it?
synopsis?
Because I feel like we could put it in this episode, and because I don't care.
You want so I can spoil it and that's fine.
Let's put up like walls here, right? Like if you don't want to know the end of Bomberman, fast forward. What do you think, Marcus? 2 minutes? Is that more than enough? Or I'm sorry, I meant to ask Charles. Marcus like, I don't know why you asking me.
Give me 3 minutes and I'll try to contain myself.
Okay, let's
This is like a Metal Gear ending, like an half-hour cutscene.
Yeah. I'll let you know when 3 minutes is coming to a close. You just say when you're ready to start.
I'm ready.
All right, here we go. Spoiler walls are up. Charles, please continue.
So there are these little creatures called Elons. They kind of look like the Chow from Sonic games. And you find them on these planets. I guess the inciting incident is the Bomberman brothers, who had saved the world in the last game, are now knowing that they've got to like protect the world from this new dark moon, which is a big like Death Star thing that's going around attacking planets. Then they discover the Elon, which are these little blue guys, and they have the ability when they touch a machine, they can disappear and then power that machine up. So there's lots of times where it's like, oh, this lamp is here, but it's off and we need it to see. And then an Elon will touch it and they'll be like, thanks, Elon. And then they can use this device to like regenerate new Elon basically and like bring them back. Turns out this guy is turns out this moon is attacking places to get Elonite, which is a valuable resource that is like, I guess, gets powers similar to the Elon. And the guy doing it is gathering all the Elonite to put it in one spot. And then the Bomberman brothers realize that if he gets all the Elonite and does this thing to it, he's going to destroy the universe and everyone is going to die.
Okay, don't want that.
At the very end, when you confront him, he's like
bad.
At the very end, when you confront him, you're like, hey, we figured out if you do this, the universe is gonna explode, including you. And he's like, yes, that's my goal. I've been alive for thousands of years and I just really want to die. And
this sounds pretty good, actually. I'm into this.
The Elon are from his original planet, and they're such valuable resources because they can generate power, that there was a war that went on and his planet basically exploded and went extinct, except he survived because the Elon made him alive, but then they also made him immortal. So now he's trapped in this curse of living and really wants to kill himself. And then he tells you that actually the Elon don't regenerate. They're dying and you're making new Elon. So it turns from these cute little things are an energy source and there's this mysterious bad guy that's destroying stuff to I really want to kill myself. Charles. And the Elon are also killing themselves. And there's a brief moment where the Bomberman brothers are like, we can't let them kill themselves
15
anymore.
seconds.
And then the Elon are like, no, we really want to. And then you go into the final battle and use the Elon to help defeat this guy.
So you kill him.
3.
No.
2.
You stop him from
1.
doing it. And that's the whole plot of Super Bomberman R2.
That was... holy crap, you nailed it, man. You called 3 minutes. You got it in there.
I did, I guess. It was just ridiculous.
The non-spoiler version is that was weird.
A lot of death involved.
I can't wait for you to retell that story when we have our best narrative discussion for Goaty.
Worst villain.
Yeah, but what's
the gameplay?
What's like the overview? I feel like we focused on a lot of specifics, but like, what is bad?
The
good,
gameplay is they've tried to basically take the like classic Bomberman formula and put it into a kind of open world format. So there's like these segments on the map, and they're all numbered. And in them, you'll see little glowing blocks, and they've got the Elon in them. If you blow it up, you get an Elon. It follows you around. 5 of them follow you around. You can use them to activate fast travel points, and then you need a certain number of Elon to open up like gates and unlock enemy bases and stuff. And it's just a really tedious process of going around these worlds and hunting down the Elon and blowing them up. And the reason it doesn't work is because, like I was saying earlier, where castle mode and Battle 64 mode are variations on Bomberman that understand what it is and what it should be. And this is a thing that is trying to take this like round peg and fit it in a square hole. So as you explore and you destroy blocks, you level up and you unlock power-ups. So in Bomberman, you can get a punch that lets you punch bombs over walls. You get a kick that lets you slide them across the floor. And you get the ability to make your like explosions bigger. And some of them, like punching over walls, is very useful. Moving faster is useful because you're like running around this world the whole time. But getting bigger explosions specifically is like a fun thing for a party mode. But in the story mode, it's just really annoying when it's like these huge bombs and you're always in these like cramped spaces trying to kill enemies or do all that kind of stuff. And like, if you blow yourself up in a party mode, it's like, oh, ha ha ha, I blew myself up. I have another life, or I guess that was the round, or whatever. And it's like a fun thing to laugh about. And this one, if you blow yourself up, all the Elon that are following you die. So you either have to go back to camp and get more or find new ones throughout the world, which is important because otherwise you can't unlock fast travel points. So that means whenever they die and you can't get a new fast travel point, you have to do all this retreading of your steps to get back to where you died. And all the blocks are back there. All the enemies are back. And it's just annoying when it's a point of this just clumsiness of it's also the concept of breaking blocks to make your way through a world. It's not like Minecraft where it's like full of blocks, but they're just so prevalent that you have to keep making paths to get through. And it's just a tedious process, and it doesn't really evolve a whole lot. Yeah.
So pass. That's what you're saying.
So pass, I guess, is the long story short. I haven't talked about this game to anyone. Also, this is me fully unloading all.
Yeah,
of my
no, we're here.
thoughts on
We're
this
here.
at once.
Where are your ears, man?
I want to know, like, all the extra fluff aside, it sounds like maybe not great. If I just want to play some just basic ass Bomberman with some friends, is this like a good Bomberman to do that?
Yes.
Okay.
Definitely. And there's also there's a lot of like guest characters you can unlock if you play more. It takes if
Konami
you beat the
characters?
story. What'd you say?
Like Konami characters?
Yes. So you can
Oh,
get
we
Pyramid
talking?
Head. You can get the Belmonts. So that's
Solid
other Konami
Snake?
characters. Yes, Snake's there.
Yeah, Snake was in the first one, I believe, too. Yeah.
If you beat the story mode, you get a ton of the in-game currency that you need to buy these guys. Otherwise, whenever I did like a local mode, I got 50 gold, and it takes 1,000 gold to unlock a character.
Oh, jeez.
But you get a lot more from playing online, so that's kind of incentivized to do that. And you get 20,000 from beating the story. So if you beat the story, you can get most of the characters.
Okay, I like that. That's cool.
But yeah, if you're just playing it to get it and play with your friends, that's good. I would avoid the story mode unless you feel like tracking your way through it, so you don't have to grind for like the money to buy other characters. But even then, it's a lot.
God, I was thinking about this, especially now that you made the Chow comparison. Like, and hardcore Bomberman fans, forgive me for what I'm about to say, such as Charles's silver ranked rival. But has Bomberman secretly been as bad, if not worse, than Sonic? Because what was the last like really good Bomberman game? Is it still the Super Nintendo one? The last one that I remember playing with any amount of like real time was the what was it, the PSN one from like the PlayStation 3, like 360, the downloadable one. You remember that one?
The one that was like all gritty and like
Yeah, like you mean like on a grid, not
no, like there was what was the one that was on 360 and PS3? It was like
I think it was that one. It had like the not as colorful graphics, right?
I mean,
or
there was one where it looked like you could confuse the screenshots with like Gears of War, like you know what I'm talking about.
I don't think it was that one, unless they did two.
Is it Is it Bomberman Live?
No.
Bomberman Act Zero is the one
Yes,
that
that's
I'm
the last
thinking
one
of.
that I. Oh, maybe I am thinking
Google
of that one. That sounds
Bomberman
fun.
Act Zero, and like that's
Yeah, I remember that one.
like just even the box art, like you could, if you showed that to someone and cropped out the word Bomberman, not in one bajillion
Okay, no,
years.
it's not this one.
Okay, would they
Yeah.
ever guess that that's a Bomberman game?
That box art is like the American Mega Man box art equivalent for Bomberman. honestly.
Whoa, that is not what I was expecting that,
That
to
is
look like
that
at
is the
all.
Hollywood wanted to make a Bomberman movie, and they were like, well, nobody wants the kiddie graphics.
Yeah.
That's not what's charming about Bomberman. They
Holy
want
cow.
real soldiers.
That was one of those, like, Konami took a left turn and tried something, and immediately U-turned, and we're like, nope, that is not what people want from Bomberman. We're sorry if we've offended anybody.
Yeah, like this movie came out in 2006 and stars The Rock before he really blew up.
Right? Yeah.
Before he learned his lesson
When
with
he
Doom.
was CGI Scorpion King. But yeah, no, I think that's a great question, Marcus. It's like, what was the last great Bomberman game? I mean, I think there are some.
I was surprised by how many there are. Like,
Oh
when I
yeah,
was
they
looking
never.
at
I mean, a lot of
the
them come out. I think a lot of them just come out in Japan now, right? For like handhelds and mobiles. But like, there's if you ever pull up the wiki page, there are so many. And like I said, it's like, yeah, what was the last time everyone rallied behind a Bomberman game? Like, this is the one, man. We gotta play Bomberman. It's like I have not. Like, I still feel like maybe it's the like Super Bomberman, like Super Nintendo is the one people still look back on fondly, right?
Yeah, I think there's some affection for 64, because it was pretty early in 64's life, and it was like, but it was like a single player game, you know. And I like Pocket Bomberman on Game Boy Color, but these are all niche, like these just like little. That was cool, you know.
Yeah.
And R, I think, even has some defenders because it was like a Switch launch title, so it was a good like Switch party game, you know, when you weren't playing Breath of the Wild, basically.
Yeah.
But no, I think you're right.
Why
It's
would
not.
you stop?
It's not
Also,
one that has ever sort of set the world on fire. At least not in the last couple of years. Yeah.
Also, I'm gonna correct myself, Charles. You were right. I was thinking of Bomberman Live.
Okay.
Is that an arcade game? Probably.
The XBLA one, yeah.
Yeah. See, that seems like a good setting for Bomberman, Xbox Live Arcade. You know.
Yeah, I remember thinking that one was like fun, especially because I hadn't played Bomberman in a while. It was like a fun return. But yeah, Superman Bomberman R2, not so much, but I will be YouTubing that story. I would like to kind of see what that looks like.
And I don't want to get into it because I could just do this forever, but the cuts, the dialogue is also so grating. It's like this. I imagine it was like done in Japanese, so they're dubbing it. But as a result, they have to say the voice lines really slowly, and all the characters. The whole point of every character other than White Bomberman is to annoy White Bomberman, so they're also very annoying. So just all the cutscenes are just like, I'm the like self-centered one, and I'm the sleepy one, and I want to blow everything up. Yeah.
I
Right, it's
like when
they're
every character is
Dopey,
annoying. That's
grumpy.
cool.
They're like the Seven Dwarves, basically, but Bomberman.
Very much so, though. Yeah.
Okay. And God. All right. So much time. Yeah, we're going to move on from Super Bomberman 2, but thank you for suffering through that so that we don't have to, Charles.
You're
Review
welcome.
up on the site now?
I'm finishing up, so I don't know for sure, but probably.
Okay. Well, if it's up, give that a read. How about we take a quick break and then we'll come back and talk about more games and do some housekeeping. How's that sound, guys?
Sure.
Alrighty, we'll be right back. Okay. You guys need a bathroom break, anything like that?
No, why?
I'm gonna get some more water real quick.
Okay.
Yeah, go for it. Is there? Do we need to insert breaks into the Game Informer show, or?
No, not need to. I know sometimes we do. This was one where I looked at the clock and I was like, this was like a gut of like, feels like a break would be good here. 'Cause it's been
Okay.
over an hour.
Totally fine.
Yeah.
I just didn't know if we had some like ads or something that we needed to insert. So
No, this was an artistic choice. I guess
Got it.
is what it ultimately comes down to. Of like, I feel like a break would be appropriate at this length.
yeah, no, all good.
Dude,
What else do we have? Cocoon, right? And
Cocoon, MK1, pretty much.
Okay.
Those are kind of the big two.
no questions. Probably. I don't think. we
Oh,
have time.
F-Zero, I'll probably talk about too. So we haven't
do wanna
talked
hear
about
about
that
that.
game at all. Did you? Oh, did you proof the Alan Wake
No,
feature?
I needed
Oh.
access to.
Oh,
I
wait, I thought
requested.
I gave X.
I can see it, but I just can't like add suggestions or make edits or anything.
Oh boy. Okay. Let me pull it up now.
Which maybe you ran into the same thing I did the other day, where I clicked all the buttons but didn't like finalize it. Right? I made it so anyone could view it, but I didn't make it so anyone could edit it. It's complicating things.
Well, that's gotta. Nah, I'm gonna do that. I was gonna sing the Robin Thicke song, but I will not do that. He has a song called "Complicated."
I don't think I know that song. He is. I for a while I watched the first couple seasons of The Masked Singer, which was fun show. But he was like the epitome of just like he's one of the hosts. You know, he's one of the people that sits at the table,
Right.
and he just is like. He's just a nothing. He's like has no personality. He just like existed, you know? Like he would just like
He's just the chair.
he didn't really make facial expressions like it was just
He like.
such it's like just milk, just a glass of milk.
I was like, what's his role? Like, is he the harsh judge? Is he the like Randy Jackson, or is he just like? Is he the free space on a bingo card of like, I don't know, he'll probably like it.
Free space on the bingo card, just like the other people on the panel had like personalities or like were goofballs, but he was
You
just
could probably
like,
tell their taste of like, oh, I bet they'll like or dislike this person because I know what they like.
yeah. But I just remember watching it and just being like, if he just left in the middle of this, I don't know if I would even notice. Like,
He just got up and walked away.
yeah.
Okay. So, fun, speaking of pop singers, I went to Outback this weekend and Joey Fatone was there from NSYNC.
Really? That's so
Well,
random.
He was there with
Does he
like his
live there?
family. Yeah, he performs at Epcot pretty regularly, actually.
Oh, okay.
And plus, NSYNC's were originally based in Orlando.
Oh, I
That's-
guess I knew that at some point. Yeah,
So I
they were
guess
Was there
like,
another instance where someone from Game Informer saw him recently? Am I imagining that? Is there like a
Brian
Wow, did you see
Shea.
him when you went to Disney?
Brian Shea
Yeah.
saw him at the Mario Brothers premiere or whatever. You're right.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was
Yeah,
like
I
sitting
was like-
behind him or something.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh
that's
wow!
so
I have
random.
to tell Brian like, hey, I have a Joey Fatone encounter story as well. He was at the table next to mine with his whole family and just having a.
Did they get a bloomin'
And then-
onion? Did they do it?
They did get a blooming onion.
Okay, he gets my respect then.
Yeah, Joey. He probably got it
Timberlake
for free,
wouldn't order a bloomin' onion. He'd be like, I can't do the calories.
He seemed very nice. He was very jovial. He was having a really good time with his I assume his family. There were kids there, so I assume.
Well, I hope it's his family.
Yeah, he's just
Some
some
random
strangers he
kids.
sat with. Yeah. Alrighty, ready to get back in it?
Mhm.
All
Yes.
right.
Was my Bomberman segment, was that coherent? It was one of those
Oh
things where
yeah, you're fine.
I caught myself talking after a few minutes and I was like, I'm really worked up about this. And I was not expecting
No, that's
this,
good.
so I
Hey,
was
that's
just
good
making sure.
podcasting, man. That's good.
Yeah, now that's what I call podcasting.
I also like how perfectly you nailed that 3 minutes. That was so funny. It was just like
That's good.
that's good.
I'm glad you held it up because I did abridge some sections for that.
Okay.
But it worked out.
Yeah. Alrighty, here we go. Welcome back to the Game Informer show. Kyle, I think you've been itching to talk about a game that you also reviewed called Cocoon. And I'm very interested to hear what you think because I've been looking forward to this game for quite some time.
Yeah. Charles described Bomberman as tedious. I would describe Cocoon as almost the opposite. of tedious. Actually, now that I think about it, there's some tedium in Cocoon, but it's not in a sort of overtly negative way. So Cocoon is, from what I understand, the Playdead puzzle designer. Playdead did Limbo and Inside. This game does not play like Limbo or Inside, but it is an environmental puzzle game. So I would put it in the same genre, if that makes sense.
Now-
if you like those games, you will like Cocoon.
Now, real quick, you said
yeah.
this is from an ex-Playdead person. Does it start with an alien invasion?
No. Well, actually, I don't really know. Maybe?
I would say, is the streak broken?
It is very vague. Like I love these kinds of games, right? Somerville, and I didn't finish Planet of Lana, but like that's my jam. Limbo and Inside. It's kind of like it's become a genre unto itself of just like abstract environmental puzzle games that are engaging, but you don't really know what's happening entirely, right? Like that's, I feel like, a pretty effective shorthand for those kinds of games. Little Nightmares I would put in there too. But Cocoon is probably the most abstract, and I had the least amount of understanding of what was happening. It could be about an alien invasion for all I know. I'm not really sure. You're this like little bug that it's not a side scroller. It's like a 3D game where you kind of have a sort of overhead isometric perspective, and you're moving around and you have these globes that contain like universes within them. And the game is about like moving between those universes and picking up those globes and carrying them somewhere else and then like entering them. And it sounds it's hard to describe. It's one of those things that's like if you saw it in action, you'd very much understand what they're going for. Like look up a trailer if you're if I'm doing a bad job explaining it, which I totally accept that I may be. But my fear about it was that it's like, ooh, this seems like it could get really complicated. But I was grateful that by the end of the game, they never get too far into the sort of the zone of overly complicated. It always feels doable. You're always making progress. I really liked a lot of the solutions to many of the puzzles, but I never was in a position where I was like really hitting my head against a wall and being like, I have no idea what to do. And the thing that's really impressive about Cocoon is it does that with like a super abstract setting and zero text or dialogue whatsoever. It is just like you kind of just through their animation and like the way the world looks and the way they sort of direct your attention, you always know where you're supposed to go and what you're supposed to do and have a basic understanding of like, okay, I need to get from point A to point B. What is the solution that I need to come up with to do that? And it works really well. The game feels great. It plays really smoothly. Controlling that character on screen just feels really good. There's no combat. There are these boss fights, but the boss fights are more about like positioning and making sure you're in the right place. You're never like attacking necessarily. I think there's one instance where you're like dropping bombs kind of. But it's just a cool abstract puzzle game that does have like a narrative, a beginning and a middle and an end, but like I really couldn't tell you what was happening or why I was doing what I was doing, but I was just really engaged throughout and wanted to see where it was going. So yeah, Cocoon, it's a good game. The one thing that I sort of brought it down a little bit, the reason I'm not like putting it in that sort of 9 tier of game, I think I gave it like an 8.5, 8.75, is it moving the globes back and forth between the worlds can get a little like, okay, I got to put this down. I know what I needed to do, but I got to put this down and pick this up and put it over on this slot, and then I got to like move over here and grab this thing because you can only hold one globe at a time, and by the end of the game, you're managing like 3 or 4 of them. To solve sort of the ultimate puzzles. And that can be a little just like, it feels a little time consuming where maybe it doesn't need to be necessarily. But it's not a long game. It's not like, it's not a deal breaker for the game. It's just the one element, the kind of unavoidable element of the game where I was like, I wish this was like a little smoother. But overall, Cocoon, it's a cool game. I like it. Published by Annapurna, they've had a good track record thus far. And I recommend it. Cocoon, I think. 2 C's, 2 O's, 3 O's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you were to give your best estimation of what the story is, or at least a premise of it, what is because you said you could tell there was a story, you just couldn't tell what's going on. What were like the parts that you were shown to suggest that?
So you're this little bug creature that emerges from a cocoon, the namesake, and there seems to be like other creatures that are encroaching on maybe your territory and you're trying to push them back, so maybe it is kind of an alien invasion story. But by the end of the game, there's always that question of like, was I the bad guy the whole time? I don't know. I really am not sure what I was doing, but there also seemed to be it feels like you're diving into this sort of microscopic universe sort of, because you're getting smaller and smaller and bigger. So it seems to be alien bugs or creatures across a series of alien worlds. And that's about the extent of what I can say about the narrative. Not that I'm trying to hide anything. I truly am not sure. And I think that can be dangerous, right? That can be like, well, if you're too abstract, then you can draw nothing from it. But there's enough there to be like, oh, is this like, am I doing what I should be doing here? Is this, what is this creature? Am I the problem? Are they the problem? I don't really know.
That's a weird thing where I wonder, is like, is it better to have a story that's like nigh incomprehensible versus a story that is pretty straightforward but is bad? Of like, would I rather be like confused or just like disappointed or even upset of like, this is just a bad story that I fully understand? No,
I think through the years I've learned about myself, at least, that I'd rather be confused, because that at least gives you the opportunity to draw your own conclusions. I mean, like, I could go, it's one of those games where I could have a conversation with the creators and probably be like, this is kind of sort of what I think happened, and they would be like, really? That's not what we were going for. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if that was the conversation. Kind of, in a way, it reminds me of Scorn from last year in that way. They're very different games, and I like Cocoon more, but Scorn was a game that I have no idea what happened in that game, but I was like undeniably engaged throughout and wanted to see like what was going to happen next, and that's how I felt about Cocoon.
Okay. Nice. Yeah, I'm super psyched. That comes out 29th this week.
Yeah, I think by the time this podcast is airing, maybe it comes out tomorrow if you're listening to it on the first
Friday.
day. Yeah, the review goes up on Thursday. And shout out to Annapurna, or the developer. I'm not sure who to thank for this, but it was one of those instances where they gave us the code quite early. So I was able to like take my time with it and not rush with it, and got through it and had time to put the review together, without having to rush. Just always like to shout that out when we have the opportunity to, because it's very helpful for our jobs.
Absolutely.
So if any publishers are listening, it's like, give us those codes early when you can. I understand you always can't, but it's very helpful for us.
Nice. I'm psyched to download this, and it's on Game Pass, which is
cool. Yeah,
better.
I didn't know that.
And it's not super long. I think I beat it in under 5 hours, maybe 4 or something like that. So Game Pass, if you're a subscriber, absolutely play the first hour. Yeah, see if you like it.
Nice. Hey, you know what else is a really good game that you can only play with a subscription service?
I don't know.
F-Zero 99, baby. I finally started playing that because it came out while I was in LA, because that was when that Nintendo Direct happened, and I've been so busy sort of like, dealing with all the fallout and stuff from that I hadn't had a chance to fire it up, but I kept hearing about it from people and just hearing nothing but glowing things. People saying it's the best, I guess, 99 game since Tetris. And I'm not even like a huge F-Zero fan. Like, I didn't really grow up with it. I probably played it like a handful of times at friends' houses, like the original like Super Nintendo one. But I've never really played the other ones, like the one on 64 that I think is on Switch now.
That's my favorite. That's the only F-Zero I've really gotten into, was F-Zero X, which I like that game quite a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I revisited classic F-Zero when it came to like the Wii or Wii U Virtual Consoles, whichever one it was, and that was probably the most I ever put into it, just out of nostalgia. But I will say that I'm really loving F-Zero 99 so far.
Cool.
It's fun. It is so for those that don't know, imagine F-Zero, Super Nintendo F-Zero, and you were racing against 99 other people, and you either try to win or at least try to outlast everyone, because you can bump into each other. You have a life bar that also doubles as your boost bar, so you can hit a button to go faster, but then it's at the expense of health. And every time you lap, you can go to the pit stop area to regain some of that health. But it's like a strategic dance of like, I need to go faster, but if I do, I'm gonna be like in the red. And then if somebody sideswipes me, and then I go into the barrier, I'm dead. Because every time you hit a barrier, it hits you're taking away life, and it sort of like plays on how tough F-Zero is in terms of like you're going so fast, and so many of those tracks have like tight corners, and it's all about knowing how to drift really well and knowing when to.
I was just gonna say, it's from that era of racing game, which Mario Kart is too, where they didn't have like rounded turns; they just had like squares.
Yeah.
It's like some like Etch-a-Sketch thing.
Yes, right.
Like all the tracks were made in Etch-a-Sketch.
That's right.
Like there's some angles where you're like, really? What did you what do you want from me here? But I mean, it fits the battle royale format because it is so like challenging that you're seeing like 99 players trying to take this sharp turn, and naturally because there's just so many people are just going to eat it left and right, and you just like there's no strategy other than like I guess I'll try to be in the middle as best I can, but you're just like whatever, I'll do my best and just see who if I don't explode at the end of this. But just like the spectacle of it, of just seeing all these little sprites just ramming into each other, like it is absolute chaos in the best way, but it still does require some skill. Like they're at you're collecting these little orbs to fill up a power-up meter, and then we get the full meter. And I haven't played, I'm gonna preface it by saying I haven't played F-Zero in a while, so if some of the stuff was in original F-Zero, I apologize, but I don't think a lot of it was. They did add some like new mechanics for this game, namely like I think the like spinning around to hit people and send them flying. I don't think was in the original.
I think that was an X, the 64 one. But yeah, I think you're right. I don't think it was in the original.
Okay, but when you fill up like your power meter, you hit a button and it summons a track above everybody, and it just sort of gives you a chance to catch up without interference. There might be a couple other people that activated their boosts around the same time, but by and large, you can kind of catch up, sort of like obstacle free. It's they have like rankings based on like rivals and stuff, where like you'll see people that are kind of a similar level than you, and it'll be like, hey, if you can destroy or get higher place than this guy, it'll add more points or something, because you're like earning these tickets that you can use to spend to buy like new cosmetics for the cars, and like your avatar, like there's a whole like sort of like little store basically to be like, hey, you can decorate your profile and stuff. They have Grand Prix too, which I didn't expect. I thought it was just like, oh, just one race with 99 people, but there's like the Grand Prix, we can do cups with or like a series of races with other players.
Oh, okay.
I played a time event last night where it was I caught it like 20 minutes before it expired, and I'm glad, where it was they just put you on like the hardest tracks in the game. So, and then you got like basically like extra points for finishing it. I have not won yet. But I also have not died in a race. I finished every race. I've yet to explode, even though I've come close where I finished with like a sliver of health. That's kind of like, I'd rather lose than get knocked out early. You know what I mean? Just from like an ego standpoint. But
I thought it was all like last man standing. That's not how the game works?
It's like both.
Oh, weird.
So you're still racing and trying to get first, but like you can explode and get knocked out early before you even finish the race, because it's like 4 or 5 laps. So you can go on for, I mean, the races don't last long, because I think even then it's like 2.5 minutes every race, which is nice for like, it makes it easy to be like, I'm just going to play a race or two in between, I don't know, a bigger game where you just have some time to kill and it's not as much of a commitment. But it still feels like longer than that, just because there's so much going on.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not purely last man standing. It's like you're still trying to gun for first, or at least like whatever milestone of like, okay, I'm in the top 50 or the top 40, top 30, whatever. And but like,
so the race is the focus. Okay, that's for
yeah. You still want to race good and not just focus on trying to kill everybody.
Okay, the reason I assumed it was last man standing is because there is a mode that I really loved back in the day in F-Zero X that was against CPU, because the thing about that game is there's like 40 different cars you can race as,
Yeah.
And the mode was like, just do this track forever until everyone's dead and you're the last person standing. And when I was a kid, and like that was a fun mode to play. I would just like try to take out 40 other cards over the course of like 20 minutes, So I just assumed that that's what this mode was, but it's not, which is interesting.
Yeah, it's a cool thing. Like if we can't get a new F-Zero, then I'll take this. Like I want to play more of it and continue to see like what other little like either limited time like cups or Grand Prix or updates they add to it over time, and just like how they support it. Like I think it's doing pretty well in terms of like engagement. It seems like it's been a pretty big hit. I don't know if it's hitting like Tetris 99 numbers necessarily, but I think it's probably doing better than you would expect from like an F-Zero game in 2023.
I certainly wasn't like mad about it or anything. I just wasn't really that incentivized to play it. I was like, whatever, I don't know. I got other stuff I want to play. But this is actually making me say like, well, hold on, maybe I should go play a couple rounds. Check it out.
Yeah, it's fun. And they also do a good job onboarding you. Like, you have to play a series of, like, I think you have to play, like, 2 tutorial races where it's like, okay, the first race, you're just against 25 people. Second race, you're against 50. third race you're against 99, and then you're playing against other players because they want to teach you the new mechanics of like, this is how you slam, this is how you boost, this is how you do this. And so I actually like the on ramp because it doesn't take long, but it's like, oh, I'm glad I learned this in a like more controlled setting than just throwing you in there with a bunch of players and saying good luck.
Yeah.
So you feel ready, or at least mostly ready by the time you get to like a real race. So shout out there. But yeah, I'm gonna keep messing around with it. I think it's another game that you can maybe chalk up to like one of the best pleasant surprises of the year that we didn't know that we would be getting, kind of like a hi-fi rush situation of like, oh, this is the thing that you want to, that justifies the Nintendo Online subscription. I mean, like the libraries, like the classic game libraries are cool, but you know, they update so infrequently with a lot of them that you can't always depend on it. And to have this bonus like, hey, we made like a dedicated game just for this is awesome. Hopefully it stays in perpetuity because they're taking away Pac-Man pretty soon, which I've actually never played. I should probably fire it up before it, you know, goes away for good just to play it. But
is Tetris still there? Like, or
Tetris is still there. Okay. I think Tetris is. I think the world would be set on fire if they took Tetris. Like, I don't think that would go over well at all. That game's still super popular, from what I understand.
I mean, that's the one I played the most for sure.
Same
like, among all those, yeah. So
yeah,
but yeah. I'll spend some time with F-Zero. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Marcus,
also,
what's the farthest you've made it?
I'm trying not to confuse like the tutorial races because those don't count. So I was like, I got in third place, and I was like, oh wait, that was like against bots. I think like 32 was my best so far, like 32 second place. And also, granted, I feel like that scales because a lot of people get knocked out, so like the ratio changes. But I guess you still outlasted like 20 other people, right? Because it was like, I think it was by the end, it was like 32 out of 50 something, but then 40 people got killed. So still means I out survived or outperformed better than them. So.
Hey, I'm still proud of you, man.
Thank you, Kyle. Also, would you be proud of me if I told you that I finished the Mortal Kombat 1 campaign this weekend?
Yeah, you're just killing it, man. Congratulations.
I did kill a lot of people in that story mode. I won't spend too much time on this. I'll just sort of give my general thoughts on just everything that because I think I talked last week about sort of like the beginning part of it, but now that I'm done with it, I will say I liked it, but I don't think I loved it.
Oh,
and I think
okay.
Yeah, I think I'll take 11's campaign, which was just so wild and just so, and this game gets pretty wild too, but I think it does it better in MK11. And granted, they were kind of concluding a trilogy at that point, but I think in terms of it being consistently entertaining, I would take the new one, or 11, I should say. My biggest problem with the new one is that it ends in just like, it goes completely off the rails, but I think it goes off the rails in sort of a not great way, mainly because at a certain point, and I'm speaking vague because I don't want to spoil, but there's a clear point in the story where they sort of abandon everything they had built up or set up it beforehand with like these new versions of the characters and sort of the more intimate story of like, this is the conflict within Liu Kang's new world. And then a thing happens where they're like, hold on, there's something bigger at play here. And then it completely focuses on that in a way where it doesn't even touch on everything that was going on up to that point, because it shifts its focus to this kind of grander plan and like threat, where it's like, okay, this is cool, but what about the other people that we were just spending like a few hours with? And then by the time you get back to them, it feels really jarring of like, oh, these guys, okay, yeah, we're back. But then by that point, the story's basically over. And I didn't really like that because I was pretty invested in like the story up to that point. And even with the big twist of like, here's what's actually at play here, it was like, oh, this is cool. But then as it went on and on, I was like, wait a second, weren't we just hanging out? And maybe because it doesn't really resolve like a bunch of the threads that they had introduced, where like there's characters and you're like, okay, this person is fighting because of this, but we never found out what happened. Like, are they cured of their disease, or did this person get accepted with their people again? Like things like that. Where like you don't get any follow up to sort of the like their reasons
hanging
for fighting,
threads, basically.
Yeah, and not in a way where it's like, oh, I'm sure they'll touch on that in the next game. It's like, I don't know if they will, honestly.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I don't know if they're big enough. I feel like they'll just kind of move on, right? And they'll just say like, just assume that it worked out for them, maybe. I don't know. Like I would.
It's like the end of. Have you guys seen the end of Fight Club?
Yeah.
Like the Chinese ending.
Oh,
For Fight Club.
yeah,
You heard about
yeah.
this? It just like
Oh yeah.
I think right. It like right before the buildings explode, it fades to black, and there's like credits that just say, "Tyler Durden was arrested and sent to prison," or something like that. Right?
It was basically they were just shy of the Simpsons clip where Homer's running for sanitation management. He's at the U2 concert, and it was just like, "Don't worry." Tyler Durden got the help he needs, and then you see Tyler Durden get beat up in prison by security guards. Like it feels like that's what they really wanted to do. And they're like, maybe we should tone it down a bit. But we clearly don't like the original ending of this guy basically getting away with what we think is like a crime.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, sorry to derail you, but it just kind of does it feel like just sort of a suddenly fade to black and maybe something happened, and that's like
Yeah, like there, I
it.
had my shoulders shrugged like this, like wait, what about all the
Yeah.
stuff there? What about those guys? Are we gonna see what happened to them or no? Okay. So like as entertaining as the last sort of like third of it is, because it gets so off the rails and so over the top, like comedically so. And granted, a lot of it is intentional because there's just God, I almost want to do a spoil in this game because it gets just that last third gets so wacky. But like it kind of comes at the expense of sort of like tossing aside a lot of the threads they had built up prior to it in terms of the individual characters that were kind of treated as main players and then very quickly like, no, they're not. They do not matter. So I am disappointed with that. But overall, I mean, like in terms of presentations and cinematography, it's definitely the best one that they've done. I just wish that it was just a little bit more consistent and maybe even at points coherent.
That's not a lot to ask for, frankly. Coherency, unless
I'm
you're playing
excited.
Cocoon.
Yes, or Super Bomberman R. Who knows?
Don't get me started.
But yeah, I'm excited to jump into the other stuff 'cause I haven't touched anything the other modes in MK1s. I wanted to finish the campaign, so I want to check out invasions and towers and get online now and see how all that sort of stacks up. But yeah, that is my Mortal Kombat 1 update, and I think that will spell the end of the show. Thanks for hanging out with us. Everyone listening, Kyle, thank you. Charles, thank you. Do you guys have anything else you want to throw out there real quick before we say goodbye about like games or just life? I know that's a strange question for me to ask, but
No. Just
would you like to speak?
check out GameInformer.com. Marcus wrote all kinds of Spider-Man and Final Fantasy and Alan Wake stuff. I think next week is the next cover reveal. I think, right?
Oh, yeah, it is next Tuesday.
And we've been streaming those pretty consistently, so we will stream the cover reveal on. Let's see. Let's throw the date out there. It would be nice if I had a calendar in front of me.
It would be October 3rd.
Right. Okay. So October 3rd, Tuesday, October 3rd, usually around, I think 11 a.m. Central Time is when we reveal the new covers. So tune in for that. I'm excited about this one. I mean,
people have been asking us lately.
I'm excited for all of them, but this is another one that I'm excited for.
Yeah, I've seen some comments on different like videos and articles of people specifically being like, "When are you guys gonna announce the October cover?" Well, now you know, October 3rd. And yeah, just to jump into housekeeping real quick, just a reminder on that note about the cover is that single issues of Game Informer, you can buy them now. Just go to your GameStop. We've seen photos of them like just putting them out on display now, like on the shelves. Like it seems like some stores you don't have to just ask them, like the employees. It seems like they're just there to grab, which is pretty cool. But they're $5.99 each. You can get a lot of the pretty much like the recent issues or pretty much all the issues from like 2023, which is nice. If you're watching the video version, you can see Charles here holding up the Assassin's Creed Mirage, our current cover story. Kyle also Assassin's Creed Mirage. I didn't get the memo. Mine's in the next room. I'm sorry, I can't hold mine up. It would have been the trifecta.
There's no way of knowing if it exists.
But yes, it's a great way to support Game Informer. We'd appreciate it if you, pick up some issues for you, your friends, your grandma, whoever wants one. Go do it.
Yeah, she loves Assassin's Creed Mirage. She's a super fan.
Probably. I mean, depending on how old they were, they might have been around in some of those games' eras.
Wow.
It's a great way to support us as well. It's subscribing to our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Game Informer. We usually try to stream a couple times a week, every Friday, doing replay, including our ongoing Mortal Kombat 9 Super replay that myself and Kyle are currently enjoying. We did our third episode last week. There's a chance that this coming episode might be the last one.
All right, now, is this a Banjo-Kazooie situation where we said it was the last episode for like a month straight?
I only say that with a question mark because I remember the final fight in that game being very hard.
Oh, so we might spend some time on that. Okay.
Yeah, so we'll see how that goes. But just where we are or where we left off last week, it's like, okay, I think we could finish this within like 2 hours. So we shall see. But I already have the next Super replay in mind, and it's an exciting one that I have to actually let you in on, Kyle.
Yeah, this is news to me.
So yeah, twitch.tv/Game Informer. Remember, subscribing to the Twitch channel gets you access to the Game Informer Discord channel as well. Be sure to follow us on social media. We're on X, right there. See it? We're on that thing. We're on Blue Sky as well as Threads, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook as well. Follow us on any of those if you like those. Keep up with all of our news and updates. If you want to follow us individually, all three of us are on at least one of those things. If you want to follow me, I am on Twitter/X as well as Blue Sky at Marcus Stewart 7. Kyle, where are you at?
I'm either Kyle M. Hilliard or Kyle Hilliard with no M. I was able to get it on Blue Sky without an M, but
the M is gone.
The M is gone. Yeah, you can find me. I post a lot of TikTok actually lately. That's where I put a lot of like video game clips there. I feel like it's a good platform for just sharing. Hey, here's me in Resident Evil 4's Separate Ways DLC throwing a grenade to block an axe coming at my head. It's like, oh yeah, I'll put that online somewhere.
Yeah, you make some good TikToks.
Oh, thank you.
Charles, where can folks find you online?
I'm at all three of those places. ChuckDuck365. I mainly only post on X/Twitter, even though I don't like it. It's just
there's just
the most people there.
Are you guys like me, where you're silently hoping that Elon Musk pulls the trigger on that paywall to finally give you an excuse to abandon it for good?
Please.
You're almost like egging him on to do it. Like, do it, please. Put me out of my misery. If you want to...
Oh, I was about to spoil Bomberman R, but I'm not going to... You got to go back to that other section. Speaking of putting out of your misery.
I know the exact joke you're going to make. It was really hard for me to not open my review with that joke. Anyways. Continue, Marcus.
If you enjoy listening to this podcast, you can check out our other podcast, All Things Nintendo, hosted by Brian Shea, posted every Friday. And also, as always, a super special duper chocolate covered shout out to Matt Storm, aka DJ Storm again, our awesome podcast editor, who also has two fantastic podcasts you should check out. The first is Fun and Games, and the second is Reignite, which is a BioWare focused podcast. And yeah, I know we haven't done them in a while, but definitely want to get back to doing some listener questions, So send us your questions either at podcast@GameInformer.com, or if you're in our Discord channel, you can drop them into Game Informer Show. And just feel free to just drop questions in there for us to ask. You don't have to wait for us to prompt you. If you just have something on your mind, drop them in that Discord channel, and we'll gather them up in a nice big pile and answer them on the show. So thank you guys for watching. Thanks for listening as well. And we'll see you next week with another episode of the Game Informer Show.